Welcome back to Swordbox. I can remember hearing an interview years ago with a convicted serial rapist and killer. The interview was taken just before he was to be executed for his crime. He was asked how he had become so sexually addicted and perverse to the point that he could commit these unthinkable crimes. It all started, he said, when he was a boy. He saw some images in one of his father's magazines, probably not even what we would consider pornographic images today, barely even considered probably to be sexual, but it stirred up lustful thoughts in his mind. Now I want to say something here, especially to young boys. This is where it can begin, or this is where it can end. This is the moment of truth, so to speak. That first encounter with sexual lust, some type of movie or video or magazine, what we do next can have a major impact on our sexuality. We can take a step back and acknowledge that this is lustful and not God's will for us, or we can take another step towards desire and end up in quite a mess down the road. For this man, he continued to feed his curiosity and desires by continuing to look at those magazines, which over time didn't satisfy his cravings and his desires. Then he moved up to what we would call soft porn, which over time didn't satisfy. Then he moved to hardcore porn, which over time again didn't satisfy. He then turned to carrying out his now completely perverted sexual desires out on unsuspecting women. Now everyone is not going to take sexual addiction to that extreme, but that is how sexual addiction works. Fueled by masturbation and sexual fantasy, it grows and it grows and it grows, and it never satisfies us. Always craving something new, craving something different, and craving something more. Sex drive is the most powerful compulsion in a man's life, and it starts in puberty. Our God has provided for release of built-up sexual tension called wet dreams. So it's not as though we will die if we don't act on our sex drive. We will be just fine. Sex educators in schools today teach no morality in regards to sexuality, and kids are taught basically that we are no different than animals and must act on our desires. So we must teach our kids about sexuality in the home if we want them to learn God's way and God's design for sexuality. They're absolutely not going to get it in school. If kids learn only to self-gratify themselves by looking at porn and fantasizing, not only is this behavior very addictive, but it is also very damaging, teaching them that all sex is about lust and pleasing their own sexual desires. Patsy Ray Dawson wrote that that first look at a pornographic magazine or that first time to masturbate with the pictures may seem like a harmless, victimless activity. Yet God warns that the person who becomes enslaved to various lusts and pleasures is deceived. That self-deceit takes place gradually over a period of time until the real victim becomes engulfed and enslaved in the sin. And the verse she referred to is our verse for today, Titus 3:3. For we ourselves were also once foolish, disobedient, deceived, serving various lusts and pleasures. And really that's such a big point, because sin is deceiving. We think that we can just take hold of something that brings us pleasure and not concern ourselves with the consequences. We think that's freedom, but really it's not. It's simply a trap. Quoting again from Patsy Ray Dawson, she said in Dr. Archibald Hart's book, The Sexual Man, he explains how every perversion he discusses has its roots in masturbation and self-stimulation that eventually becomes compulsive or addictive. That's so important. Masturbating to orgasm releases and utilizes sexual hormones in such a way that it greatly increases the imprint on the brain of the accompanying activity and defines how the person experiences sexual pleasure. I mean, that's a very, very important thing to think about. So in other words, we train ourselves to only enjoy sex when stimulated by our own visual fantasies. Our lust, our perversion, it's a purely selfish act and has nothing to do with real intimacy and real love, the kind that God intended to take place with a man and his wife. Our mate can never live up to the images and fantasies that we put in our minds through lustful addictions, and they shouldn't. Is there any doubt why there are so many problems with sex in marriages today? One person comes in with a mind saturated with lustful fantasies and desires, often perverted, and the other is looking to express love and romance, and it simply doesn't work out for either one. If we grow up getting our beliefs about sex from pornographic materials in Hollywood, we have the wrong idea. And unfortunately, millions of men and women do today, and we have a big problem with sexual addictions. We're going to pick up right here tomorrow, right where we left off, and I hope you'll tune back into Swordbox. God bless you.